So, hello, Fady. Could you just please introduce yourself?
Yeah, Leah, it's such a pleasure to be on your podcast. My name is Fady Hannah-Shmouni. I'm an endocrinologist and geneticist specializing in healthy hormone health. I am also the CEO and founder of HealthSpan Digital. We are a technology company that build various technology-focused products and services to help scale the field of precision health and longevity. And I also manage longevity programs in Dubai focused on tailoring various components of an individual's health journey so they can live a healthier life.
Amazing. Well, I'm very excited, to come to Dubai to see the clinic. And today, we're gonna speak about very interesting subject. So we will speak about longevity and what works and what doesn't. I'm personally very curious to hear your opinion because every person in this field, has different views and I'm dying to hear what's really, working and what doesn't.
Absolutely, Leah. So I think there is definitely a lot of noise in the longevity market today because we, for the first time in history, have so many products and services that we can empower consumers with, from supplements to clinical care to wearable data and biohacking experiences. But let's set the stage by defining a few terminologies. So the meaning of lifespan is the number of years we live on Earth and breathe oxygen from the moment where we are born to the moment we die. So that's lifespan. Health span are the number of years lived in good health away from disability and disease. Typically, that last 10 to 20 years of our life when we want to live in good quality without the burden of chronic disease that we have today. And longevity is the pursuit to living a longer, healthier life. So an extension of health span and lifespan. And that seems to be, an interesting product and concept that a lot of consumers want today. So what works, right? What works for health span and that may ultimately translate to lifespan? Well, Leah, we know with certainty that if you exercise and build muscle and be fit, independent of your age, you will likely equip your body with the right tools needed to fight disease, including cancer and chronic cardiometabolic diseases like diabetes. And that will ultimately translate to living sort of a healthier years, so health span, and then likely longer years, longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would advise everybody that's looking to pursue healthy, longer, happier years is to focus on being fit.
Right.
So yeah,
Any particular maybe a fitness plan you would recommend? Because I know some people they mention oh you have to maintain the bone density, the muscle mass. Sometimes you can meet some people, they just runners, they just run, but they don't really pay attention to muscle mass. So maybe you can recommend to our listeners that anything that probably will work the best in the combination.
absolutely, Leah. So fitness is a very important goal to achieve, but it will also require a very big commitment from the individual. So what do we mean by being fit? Well, it has several important meanings and strategies. Let's focus on cardiopulmonary fitness. So how can I today be healthy from a heart, lung, and muscle perspective? I can do that today by measuring one of the most important subjective markers of fitness, which is called the VO2 max. And the VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen we use during exercise. And we can measure that today using some sophisticated equipment in a longevity clinic or a gym. And that will give us a number. And we can track this number to give us an idea of how fit we are on a scale. The more fit we are, the more likely we're going to live longer, and the less likely we're going to develop disease. So how can we do that? Well, we could do that by having a fitness schedule. And that focuses primarily on endurance and resistance related exercises. So for endurance, running, cycling, swimming, and you do it gradually, and you want to achieve a point where you could really push yourself for a longer period of time without getting too tired.
Mhm.
And from a resistance perspective, you want to lift weight. So you want to challenge your muscles with weightlifting. And so you could develop an endurance and a resistance exercise that works best for you. It could be at home or in a gym. It could be with a personal trainer. But the idea is to really equip your body with building more muscle and creating this endurance physiology that will then translate into a healthier VO2 max. And that healthier VO2 max will then translate to lower risk for disease and longevity. There are so many other things you can do, like nutrition, sleep, recovery, cold plunges, supplements, hormones, peptides. It's a very big industry. But if you just focus on the basic concepts of fitness, which is I want to feel healthy, I want to build muscle, I want to be able to run and jog and swim for a long period of time, independent of age, that will give you a great baseline and platform to play with that will help with this very important concept of health span and longevity.
Great. I mean, I'm sure, like all of us and majority of our listeners, they all have like older parents. And like, for example, like for me, like when I try like to introduce like some fitness program like to like my family, like my mom, she's like, oh no, like it's too difficult. She's starting to come up like with lots of, like excuses and this and that. So, what would you recommend, like for like an older generation who kind of like they're a little bit like stuck like in their own way, and for them like it's very like hard to change their habits. So, like talking about like some cardio, like probably for them it would be very, very stressful. So maybe like they can start walking, and like in terms of like maintaining the muscle mass, maybe there could be like something else that they can try.
Right, absolutely. It's such an important topic. As you know, after the age of 50, we develop anabolic resistance, which is the inability to build muscle this at the same speed as our younger years. And we also tend to lose function, power, and muscle in the decades to come. It's part of our aging process, and that gets more accelerated if we have chronic diseases like diabetes and cancer and neurodegenerative diseases and dementia and so on. So you want to understand the frailty score of an individual that's old. How frail are they? If they're too frail, then you have to be very careful with what you do, right?
Mhm.
And you want to understand if they're able to get out of the chair, right? If they're using a walker, if they're at risk of falls, if they have good hearing, good vision, if their memory is intact, because all of that will be used to sort of design their fitness program. If they're too frail, you have to be very careful with how you design that program. If they're very fit, then you can recommend, sort of anything. They can go and swim and jog. They can do 150 minutes of moderate exercise, so brisk walking, jogging, etc. In the environment, or they can buy technology like the tonal equipment or the treadmills or whatnot at home, so they can follow a certain regimen. At a minimum, 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, keeping in mind that we don't want them to fall and break a hip, and we don't want to be too forceful with their fitness exercise, which may lead to problems, including cardiac disease, because too much exercise and too much fitness can also lead to cardiac problems, including abnormal heart rhythm.
Mhm.
So I would study each individual on a case-by-case basis, Leah,
Mhm.
and then accordingly design the right fitness program for them. But to summarize, it's never too late.
Never too late.
Ideally, you need to begin early to build muscle early because of the concept of anabolic resistance and all of the other features of aging that comes later that will impact our muscles. So begin early, but it's never late to start at any time during your lifespan.
You also mentioned nutrition, right? So like we definitely live in a very interesting world that has lots of restaurants and we're always like going out, like we're eating out. What would you suggest in terms of like to keep like this balance in our like modern life, but in the same time like follow like this longevity path?
Right. So we spoke about fitness, which is, a function of building muscle and being fit. And then we spoke about how we can decorate this fitness regime with, sleep, recovery, and nutrition. And under nutrition lies a whole sort of products and services to help us with our pursuit for health span and longevity. And they include, sort of the basic nutritional needs from micronutrient and a macronutrient perspective. So micro being sort of the elements we need for our hundreds of bodily functions, like magnesium and calcium. And then the macronutrients are the amino acids, proteins, fats that we need that will also help us with different bodily functions. So what is an ideal diet or what's an ideal nutrition? We don't know. It's very individualized. If you look at communities living in the blue zone areas in the world, they tend to have whole foods, grains, beans. They tend to drink wine almost on a daily basis. They tend to walk a lot and really have an enriched food ecosystem. They make their own food. They likely have less exposure to toxins in the food. They certainly don't have ultra-processed foods in their diet. So if we want to replicate that nutritional model, I think it would make most sense because we do have some evidence showing that it's associated with health span and longevity. But in a busy metropolitan area, it might be very difficult to replicate this model. There are several challenges with foods today. Most of them are packaged, ultra-processed, and filled with toxins. So environmental toxins, endocrine disrupting toxins, including microplastics, nanoplastics, food preservatives, hormones like estrogens, and so on. So at a minimum, the consumer needs to be aware of the toxins in the food supply chain. So look at the product description and the various ingredients in the product. Avoid plastic bottles of water or any plastic bottles because they contain a lot of microparticles that may influence our risk for cancer and hormone health. Eat a whole based diet, whole foods filled with enriched micronutrients. Limit your exposure to multiple meals a day. Try to schedule your meals. Do a little bit of fasting in between meals, sort of time restricted fasting, say from 12 to only eat from 12 to 6 p.m. as an example, or intermittent fasting where you fast for a 12-hour window. And make sure that you don't fall into temptation to sugary foods, right? So sugar is poison. Complex sugar is poison, such as sweets and desserts and so on. And lastly, be careful with alcohol intake. And there's no safe zone for alcohol, Leah, believe it or not. I mean, although there are studies showing that if you drink a few glasses of wine a week, you may get lowered cardiovascular or not. But the reality is alcohol is a poison. It gets converted to more poisons in the body, and that causes a lot of problems. So if you want to limit your alcohol exposure, limit it to 6 to 8 drinks a week. Avoid hard liquor if possible. And if you really want to be very conscious about your health, avoid alcohol at all costs. So 3 take-home points. Avoid toxins, so plastics at all costs. Have sort of a whole food approach and avoid alcohol as much as possible.
Yeah, that's very great advice. Thank you so much. Actually, like I'm a little bit guilty because sometimes when I travel, I do buy water in a plastic bottle. So now I will pay attention. But we have a lot of products in a plastic. Like I like to cook, and I buy, for example, like sour cream. It also comes in a plastic. Some like other things. So would you recommend also avoid like any types of containers made from the plastic at all?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get rid of plastics at all cost, whether it's the plastic that covers your chicken when you buy it from the grocery store, which is probably the worst product you could buy because the heat emitted from the chicken would further melt and create different chemical reactions with the plastic. So avoid anything hot with plastic. That's rule number one. Rule number two is avoid drinking anything with plastic, like plastic bottles of water, because they contain a lot of different toxins, including microparticles. So you could switch plastic bottles to glass bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, glass bottles also have problems. So you can monitor the toxin content of each water bottle from a website that sort of gives you an analysis of the toxins in each water product. And today there are also phone apps you can download that can track toxin content based on a product's barcode in a supermarket.
Very
So
interesting.
yeah, so that's one way of sort of being more proactive about your food choices. Obviously, be very careful with ultra-processed food, ultra-processed food in packaging with different sort of chemical preservatives. And you may want to sort of go towards the organic route. So farms that hopefully claim that they don't use certain products and services. But the reality is, when it rains, all the toxins will find their way across a lot of these farmlands. And so the food system, sadly, is contaminated today with different toxins. The good thing is that our body is excellent at getting rid of toxins. And
Yeah.
today we have the tool from blood work or hair sample or urine analysis to measure your toxin load or your toxin content.
Wow. I would love to
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely. So you know what, Leah, for females, they get more toxin exposure through hair products,
Hmm.
makeup, clothing. And so you can measure today some analytes, toxin analytes, in different bodily fluids. And we do that as part of our longevity assessment at baseline and then in follow-up. And we also have tools to intervene to sort of clean the blood from all these toxins using different machines, such as plasmapheresis, which is a form of dialysis that cleans the body's plasma from all the toxins and inflammatory markers and whatnot as an intervention if we detect a very big toxin load that primarily comes from our food ecosystem. So these are different strategies that a longevity clinic or a longevity doctor can help tease out as part of a longevity assessment. And that's why we're in this era of personalized medicine where we have tools to help empower the consumer with a proactive, preemptive approach to healthcare.